Tell me, why do the same salary figures buy freedom for some people, yet trap others in a lifelong sprint on the financial hamster wheel? After 40 years of building, losing, rebuilding, and finally compounding more wealth than I could ever spend, I can confirm the answer isn't bigger paychecks, riskier trades, or secret hedge fund handshakes. It's 7 ancient money principles so reliable they carried my ancestors through exiles, depressions, and 2 world wars. Principles modern society flat out ignores. Stay with me for the next 20 minutes and I'll hand you the same playbook that quietly turns middle-class teachers into million-dollar grandparents while Wall Street sells everyone else easy shortcuts destined to fail. Miss a single rule and the chain snaps. Master them all and you'll never fear a recession again. Here's the statistic that should keep every high earner up at night. 78% of adults in developed nations still live paycheck to paycheck. Doctors, engineers, even 7-figure entrepreneurs. You'll find them all one crisis away from begging a bank for mercy. Meanwhile, a much smaller community, barely 2% of the U.S. population, continues to produce a wildly disproportionate share of self-made millionaires. That same community also donates more per capita than any other group I've studied. How? By following rules that spit in the face of consumer culture, rules that say discipline outranks income and character outranks credit. I learned those rules at my grandmother's wooden kitchen table long before I negotiated my first 9-figure exit. I was 8 years old. She slid 3 weathered envelopes across the surface. One labeled future, one giving, and one today. Then she said words I didn't fully grasp until decades later. Money is a soldier. It will die on the wrong battlefield unless you give it orders every single day. Most people never deploy their soldiers. They scatter them at the mall or surrender them to debt. That's why their armies are always too small when the real battles. Job loss, market crashes, medical emergencies finally arrive. If you've ever opened a bill and felt your pulse spike, you already know the stakes. The question is whether you're ready to trade financial anxiety for unshakable control. Because rule number 1 begins with 3 brutal words. Live below means, and it's nothing like the bland budgeting advice you've heard 1,000 times. Here is the most countercultural sentence you'll hear all week. Wealth begins the moment your ego ends. I've watched surgeons who earn $500,000 a year drown in overdraft fees, while a janitor in the same hospital retires with a paid-off duplex and dividends large enough to send 2 grandkids to college. The difference? One spends to impress strangers, the other spends to impress his future self. My first mentor drew a simple line on a napkin. Income on top, expenses below. Then he handed me the pen and said, if those lines ever touch, tear the napkin in half because your freedom just split in two. I was 23 and already leasing a German car I couldn't pronounce. That afternoon I broke the contract, sold the watch, and moved into a studio so small the door hit the bed. 2 years later, I used the savings to buy shares in a regional bank that quintupled after a merger. Ego would have given me leather seats. Discipline gave me my first million. Practical checklist. Cap lifestyle at 75% of take-home pay. Automate transfers the hour money lands, and audit every line item each quarter. Want a latte? Enjoy it. Just understand that $5 a day equals $1,800 a year, enough to own 50 shares of an index fund that historically doubles every decade. The question is simple. Would you rather sip foam today or drink freedom forever? Drop a comment right now. What non-essential will you cut this month? Sharing the decision publicly hardwires commitment in your brain. I'll be reading every pledge and cheering you on. Debt is a thief dressed as a convenience. The moment you swipe, it whispers, relax, pay me later. Then it compounds in the dark at 20% interest while you sleep. By morning, it owns a slice of your tomorrow, and debt never settles for a small slice. In my 20s, I borrowed $30,000 to scale a business that wasn't ready. The venture failed. The interest did not. For 3 years, every sunrise belonged to the bank. That experience etched an unbreakable law into my ledger. If it depreciates, I pay cash. If it appreciates, I negotiate equity. If it's uncertain, I walk away. Since adopting that creed, I've never paid a cent in consumer interest, yet my net worth multiplied 20-fold. Action plan. List every debt tonight. Balance, rate, minimum. Attack the highest rate first, minimums on the rest. Sell something, pick up overtime, cook at home, throw every surplus dollar at the enemy until it surrenders. Meanwhile, freeze the credit cards. Literally, if you must, in a block of ice at the back of the freezer. Each time you're tempted, you'll remember success isn't about what you own, it's about what you owe, or in this case, what you refuse to owe. Quick pulse check. Imagine waking up with 0 monthly payments, no cards, no car note, no lingering medical bill. How different would your Monday feel? That feeling is available sooner than you think, but only if you decide tonight that interest will never again outrank your priorities. Ignorance is the most expensive asset you'll ever own because it silently compounds losses, while you congratulate yourself for knowing enough. In my 40s, already worth 8 figures, I lost $2 million on a single deal because I skimmed the term sheet instead of studying it. The tuition for that lesson was brutal, but it bought me a lifelong habit. At least 15 minutes of fresh financial education every sunrise. That habit rewired everything. I devoured books on behavioral economics, audited online courses about tax strategy, and, most important, taught the material to my children over Sunday breakfast. Teaching forces clarity. If you can't explain compound interest to a teenager, you don't understand it well enough to retire on it. Action steps. Schedule 15 daily minutes for reading or podcasts. Keep a notebook called My Money Playbook and share one takeaway with a friend each week. Make the kitchen table your classroom. The moment the lesson leaves your mouth, it locks into your brain. Mid-video promise. Stick around for Rule 7. I'll reveal the single-page document that protected my grandchildren from losing half their inheritance to taxes and lawsuits. Miss that rule, and the wealth you build could vanish in probate. Before we move on, drop a comment naming the last book or podcast that upgraded your money mindset. Your recommendation might rescue someone else from financial fog. Picture your wealth as a 3-legged stool. Stocks are one leg, real assets, property, commodities, private businesses are the second. Liquid reserves form the third. Saw off any leg, and the stool crashes the moment the economy tilts. I learned that in 2008 when friends who owned 5 rental condos discovered the bank actually owned 4.5. Their entire stool was the same leg, and it snapped overnight. Ancient wisdom says, divide your holdings into thirds so no single storm can sink the ship. My modern translation, 1/3 growth. Broad market index funds, dividend aristocrats. 1/3 stability, real estate you can touch, investment grade bonds, profitable small businesses you understand. 1/3 liquidity, cash, money market funds, short-term treasuries ready for bargains or emergencies. Stress test your life today. If your primary asset dropped 30% tomorrow, would you still sleep? If not, rebalance before the market does it for you. Remember, the goal isn't to chase the highest return, it's to avoid the single punch that knocks you out of the game. Quick challenge. Look at your net worth sheet tonight and label each asset growth, stability, or liquidity. If any column screams overweight, you've just spotted your next move. Money is a mirror. It reflects your habits with brutal honesty. Most people avoid that mirror because they're afraid of what they'll see. I kept my eyes closed too. until a mentor challenged me to record every cent for 30 days. By week 2, I found a daily pastry that cost me $900 a year and a streaming bundle draining another $600. That tiny audit freed up $1,500, which I redirected into an index fund that's now worth over 30 grand. Your turn. Start a 7-day money x-ray. Every swipe, tap, or cash slip, log it within 60 seconds. Pen and paper works, and app works. What matters is immediacy. Then group the week's expenses into 4 buckets: survival, security, service, and self-indulgence. Survival keeps you alive. Security builds your future. Service expands your community. Indulgence is everything else. The goal isn't to shame your spending, it's to command it. Once you see the leaks, plug them and reroute the flow towards security and service. 10 minutes a week is all it takes. But those minutes separate people who wonder where their salary went from people who tell every dollar exactly where to go. Mid-segment teaser. In 2 minutes, I'll show you the giving habit that multiplies opportunities in ways spreadsheets can't measure. But only if you dare to believe that generosity is a growth strategy, not a cost. Giving feels counterintuitive when you're climbing, yet it's the lever that lifts you higher. My grandmother called it the open hand principle. Closed fists keep what they hold but can't receive anything new. At 29, I decided to test her wisdom. I pledged 10% of a stagnant consulting income to fund college textbooks for first-generation students. Within 12 months, my revenue doubled, not by magic, but because generosity expanded my network and sharpened my purpose. Here's the structure. Pick a percentage. Start with 2 if 10 feels impossible. Automate the withdrawal the same day your paycheck clears, so emotion never interferes. Direct the money toward causes aligned with your values and involve your family in the choice. Children who learn structured generosity grow into adults who see money as a tool, not a master. And remember, giving isn't limited to cash. Mentor a young professional. Introduce 2 friends who can help each other. Volunteer your expertise. Wealth is far more than digits on a screen. It's the depth of relationships that digits alone can't buy. Reflection prompt. Whom will you bless this week, and how will that act rewrite both your stories? Share your plan in the comments. You might inspire a stranger to start their own giving journey. Picture tomorrow as a contract you've already signed, whether you read the fine print or not. One accident, one lawsuit, one market crash can erase decades of progress unless you write your defense in advance. I've buried friends who left families tangled in probate because they never got around to a will. I've watched empires shrink by half because beneficiaries fought without guidance. My personal firewall is simple: a living will, healthcare directive, and durable power of attorney, all updated every 2 years. A term life policy large enough to pay off every liability and fund college for each grandchild. A 1-inch binder that holds passwords, account numbers, and the letter I wrote to walk my spouse through the first 60 days if I don't come home. Legacy isn't cash alone, it's clarity. Schedule 1 weekend this month to draft or review your documents. Label primary and contingent beneficiaries. Store 1 physical copy in a fireproof safe and a digital copy in encrypted cloud storage. Then talk, really talk, with the people you love. Share not only who gets what, but why those assets exist. To buy options, to buy time, to buy freedom they can then pass forward. Your future self will never regret the hour you spend on protection today, but your present self may pay dearly for every hour you delay. Myth 1. I'll invest when I earn more. Reality. Discipline with a small salary beats chaos with a big one every single decade. Start with $10 today. The habit is worth more than the amount. Myth 2. A credit score is an asset. No, your score is a lender's profit forecast. Celebrate a high score only if it sits beside 0 consumer debt. Myth 3. Diversification is for the timid. Wrong again. Concentration builds fortunes. Diversification keeps them. If you're still in wealth building mode, diversify your income streams, then concentrate your expertise. Myth 4. Budgeting means deprivation. Truth. Budgeting is permission to spend boldly on what matters because you've already vetoed what doesn't. Myth 5. Giving can wait until I'm rich. Waiting robs you of the very relationships and reputation that accelerate wealth creation. Generosity is a growth engine, not a tax. Which myth had you fooled? Drop its number in the comments so we can bury it for good. Day 1. Log every expense for 24 hours. No judgment, just data. Day 2. Cut one leak and redirect the exact amount to your emergency fund. Day 3. Freeze or shred the credit card that charges the highest rate. Day 4. Read 10 pages of a personal finance classic and teach one insight to a friend. Day 5. Move $50, or whatever you can, into a broad market index fund. Day 6. Schedule an automatic transfer to the cause you care about most, even if it's $5. Day 7. Draft or update one legal document: will, beneficiary form, or power of attorney. Complete the sprint, then circle back here and comment, "Sprint done," with the breakthrough you felt strongest. I respond to every finisher because execution is what separates watchers from winners. Picture Gerald, a high school custodian who earned less in a year than some of his students' parents spent on vacations. Every payday, he followed 3 quiet habits. He lived on 70%, he refused debt, and he swept the difference into a low-cost index fund. Kids teased him for driving the same faded sedan. Teachers joked about his brown bag lunches. What they didn't see were the quarterly statements piling up in his desk drawer. Gerald read one investment book a month, logged every penny, tithed 10% to a scholarship fund, and kept a binder with updated beneficiaries. After 40 years of floors and fluorescent lights, he retired with $8 million, enough to pay cash for a lake cabin and endow the very scholarships he once funded from scraps. The local paper called it a miracle. Gerald just called it math wrapped in patience. His story exposes the lie that wealth requires genius or glamour. It requires habits so unsexy, most people scroll past them. If a janitor can finance generations with a broom in one hand and compound interest in the other, what excuse remains for the rest of us? Fast forward your life 10 years. You ignored these 7 rules. Credit cards still hum, investments wobble on a single leg, and your children inherit confusion instead of clarity. Now rewind and replay the decade living the rules instead. No consumer debt. A 3-leg portfolio humming through bull and bear alike. A giving ledger thicker than your tax return. Which future feels lighter behind your ribs? Millions have already chosen the second timeline. Vanguard counts more than 20 million accounts compounding quietly each day. Charity Navigator tracks over $4 billion moved annually by donors who automate generosity. Fidelity reports estate planning uploads up 30% since the last recession. Ordinary people, teachers, nurses, freelancers, are proving every rule works in the real world, right now. The only variable left is you. 10 years from today, you'll either testify these principles saved your financial life, or you'll wish you had started them back when a stranger on YouTube challenged you to act. Question 1. I'm 45 with no savings. Is it too late? Not if tonight you automate 15% of every paycheck and refuse new debt. Compound interest still has 2 decades to work. Pair it with a freelance income stream, and you can outrun people who started earlier but coasted. Question 2. Should I pay off my mortgage or invest? Run the sleep test. If a paid-off roof gives you deeper rest than an extra % of return, kill the mortgage. Peace is a dividend spreadsheets can't price. Question 3. What about gold or crypto? Treat them as insurance, not salvation. Cap exposure at 5% unless you understand the asset well enough to write a 10-page report on its risks. Question 4. Can I help my adult kids without enabling them? Yes. Match their savings dollar for dollar, pay for courses instead of consumption, and require a written plan before handing over capital. Support vision, never rescue avoidance. Question 5. How do I convince a reluctant spouse? Replace lectures with curiosity. Ask what freedom looks like to them, then calculate together how the 7 rules buy that picture sooner. Shared dreams fund joint discipline. Step 1. Open yesterday's ledger, digital or paper, and glance at inflow-outflow net. 30 seconds. Step 2. Read 1 paragraph of financial wisdom. A quote, a book highlight, a newsletter clipping. 30 seconds. Step 3. Speak your top money goal aloud. 0 consumer debt by December 31st. Or 2 rental doors in 24 months. 10 seconds. Step 4. Visualize 1 concrete action you'll take today. Cancel a subscription, schedule a side gig call, move $50 to the brokerage. 1 minute. Step 5. Close your eyes and spend 90 seconds feeling the relief future you will experience when that action compounds. Anchor the emotion. Motivation follows feeling, not logic. 5 minutes, sunrise. Perform it for 30 consecutive days and watch decisions align like iron filings under a magnet. Which question or protocol step served you best? Let me know in the comments so I can double down on what moves the needle for you. You now hold 7 ancient rules, a 7-day sprint and a 5-minute morning protocol. They cost nothing but attention and will repay you in freedom every day you breathe. The next step is yours alone. Either let this video fade into background noise or engrave 1 habit before the sun sets. Choose action. Rate the video. Share your biggest takeaway. Hit like and subscribe so we keep compounding wisdom together.
Someone get it.